At first light on August 10th, 1792, the royal family stirred awake inside the Tuileries Palace as alarm bells rang out across Paris. Beyond the walls, a swelling mass of National Guardsmen, faders, and armed civilians, many once loyal subjects of the crown, gathered with the intent to seize the palace. For Marie Antoinette, this morning marked the last disintegration of her royal self. Only 3 years earlier, she had ruled as Queen of France amid ceremony and splendor. Now she waited behind sealed doors and makeshift barricades, bracing for the end of monarchy itself. After the failed flight to Varennes in June 1791, the Tuileries had become less a residence than a lavish cage. That escape attempt destroyed the fragile remnants of trust between Louis XVI and the Revolution. From then on, hostility hardened, not only toward the king, but with particular ferocity toward Marie Antoinette. Pamphlets and caricatures mocked her as Madame Deficit, accusing her of draining and betraying the nation. Her Austrian origins only sharpened suspicions that she was an enemy within. As the insurgents pressed toward the palace that August morning, the Swiss Guards, foreign mercenaries sworn to protect the king, stood ready. Yet Louis XVI, wavering and uncertain, would not give the order to fire. Instead, he guided his family across the gardens to seek refuge with the National Convention at the nearby Legislative Assembly. The palace was abandoned. Within hours it was seized, and the violence that followed left hundreds dead, including dozens of the royal guards. Before the day ended, the monarchy itself was suspended. Under armed escort, the royal family was taken to the Temple, an old medieval fortress in Paris. Marie Antoinette's descent from sovereign to captive was complete. Stripped of royal titles, she was referred to in revolutionary language simply as the widow Capet, despite the fact that the king was still alive. She would never again pass a night in a palace. Alone in the Conciergerie, the queen's terrifying imprisonment. On the night of August 2nd, 1793, officials from the Paris Commune arrived at the temple to deliver their orders. Marie Antoinette was to be moved. Records of the Revolutionary Tribunal state that before dawn, she was escorted to the Conciergerie, the prison on the Isle de la site grimly known as the antechamber of the Guillotine. From that moment, she was cut off completely from her remaining family. Her daughter, Madame Royale, later wrote that her mother embraced her in silence, knowing that even whispered words could be overheard. The prison register listed her under the imposed name Widow Capet, a deliberate attempt by revolutionary authorities to erase her former identity. She was confined to a cell in the women's quarter overlooking the river. Surviving plans of the Conciergerie, preserved by the Commission de Monuments Historiques, indicate a space barely 3 by 2 meters, surrounded by stone walls and iron bars, lit only by a narrow slit of a window. Witnesses such as the reformer Jacques-Pierre Brisset described these cells as damp, frigid, and crawling with lice and rats. At first, she was given no bed and slept on straw. A decree issued on August 5th, 1793, placed her under uninterrupted and constant surveillance. 2 gendarmes remained inside her cell at all times, refusing even to avert their eyes while she dressed or attempted to wash. Testifying before the tribunal, Officer Jean-Baptiste Mycones confirmed that she was granted no privacy whatsoever. A prison physician, whose observations were preserved in the archives of the Paris Revolutionary Committee, noted severe uterine bleeding, dramatic weight loss, and profound exhaustion. His access to her was strictly limited. By late September, those who glimpsed her reported a startling change. Accounts relayed by observers such as Lord Gower, the British ambassador, claimed her hair had turned completely white. In one last, quiet act of resistance, Marie Antoinette tried to smuggle a letter to her sister-in-law, Madame Elizabeth. The note, now held in the Archives Nationales, was intercepted and never reached its destination. Its message was brief and devastating. I have nothing left to hope for in this world. The humiliation of the trial, a queen on the stand. Marie Antoinette's trial opened on the morning of October 14th, 1793, in the main chamber of the Conciergerie before the Revolutionary Tribunal. Official transcripts later printed in the Bulletin du Tribunal Revolutionnaire reveal that the accusations went far beyond treason. She was charged with directing counter-revolutionary conspiracies, conspiring with foreign enemies, and, most infamously, with incest involving her young son, the Dauphin Louis Charles. This final charge, drawn from statements taken from the child while he was imprisoned, was condemned even by certain revolutionaries as a calculated political maneuver. The proceedings were directed by Antoine Quentin Fouquier-Tinville, chief public prosecutor of the Revolutionary Tribunal, infamous for orchestrating rapid executions. Armed guards encircled the courtroom, which was filled with carefully chosen spectators loyal to the Jacobin cause. British diplomat Francis Jackson, citing eyewitness reports he received directly, described an atmosphere that resembled theater more than a search for justice. Marie Antoinette entered wearing a white bonnet and a black gown. Observers like the journalist Prudhomme remarked on her pale complexion and hollowed eyes, though he also noted the steadiness of her posture. Questioned about alleged correspondence with foreign powers, she rejected any involvement in military conspiracies. When confronted with the incest accusation, her sole reply, entered into the official record, was, "I appeal to all mothers." According to accounts, the room fell into silence, and even her fiercest opponents hesitated to pursue the charge further. Much of the testimony rested on hearsay and warped readings of her private correspondence, letters confiscated during the 1792 assault on the Tuileries. The so-called armoire de fer, a concealed safe uncovered within the palace, was introduced as proof of clandestine dealings. Yet many of its documents proved vague or irrelevant to her personal actions. After just 2 days of hearings, marked by a token defense and no chance to summon witnesses, the jury unanimously declared its verdict, death by guillotine. She showed no outward response. The sentence was read aloud at 4 a.m. on October 16th, leaving her only hours to prepare for execution. The cart ride to death, a queen's final moments. At 7 a.m. on October 16th, 1793, Marie Antoinette was awakened in her Conciergerie cell. Prison records and the account of Marie Groscholz, later known as Madame Tussaud, who was present at the time, state that she was permitted to change into a simple white chemise, after which her hands were bound behind her. Unlike Louis XVI, executed earlier that year, she was denied a closed carriage. Instead, she was placed in an open wooden cart, the same vehicle reserved for ordinary criminals. The journey from the Conciergerie to the Place de la Révolution was intentionally slow. Contemporary police reports describe an escort of National Guards and gendarmes, with mounted troops riding alongside the cart. The procession moved through Rue Saint-Honoré, where crowds packed the streets. One of the most detailed observations comes from radical revolutionary Jacques Roux, who noted that the former queen remained silent, her head held high, her eyes fixed forward. The ride lasted more than an hour, and many witnesses remarked on her appearance. Her hair, now white, had been cut short by the executioner's assistant, in accordance with custom before beheading. At the scaffold, the executioner Henri Sanson assisted her up the steps. In his later account, he recalled that she accidentally stepped on his foot and at once apologized, her final recorded words, "Pardon me, sir, I did not do it on purpose." At 12:15 p.m., the guillotine blade fell. Official execution records state that cries of "Vive la République" rose from the crowd, though numerous observers, including journalist Louis Sebastian Mercier, described a brief hush as her body was placed into a common coffin. She was buried in an unmarked grave at the Cimetière de la Madeleine, alongside hundreds executed during the Terror. Only in 1815, following the Bourbon Restoration, were her remains exhumed and transferred to the Basilica of Saint Denis, the traditional burial place of French kings and queens. Marie Antoinette's fall was not merely the execution of a monarch. It symbolized the annihilation of an entire system founded on divine right and inherited privilege. Her trial and death revealed how revolutions can consume their symbols as quickly as they create them. Comment below, was her execution justice for the people, or the first sign of a new tyranny born from vengeance? As she wrote in her final letter to Madame Elizabeth on the morning of her death, "I forgive all my enemies. I die in the hope that my death will unite my children."